Guys, today's video is going to be about the rear delts. Now, the rear delts are actually, in my opinion, a really attractive part of any back. But a lot of people train them incorrectly. And I wanted to bring the muscle chart out today again and just show you a little bit of kind of like why my brain ticks the way that it does, because I'm always very conscious of the actual anatomy of a physique when I'm trying to build muscle. Now, in one of the other videos, I'll get down the female muscular system video picture to show, not being too sexist, but very similar. So the rear deltoid muscle, we're going to look here. Now, if you abduct the arm up to the side, that's really where we're going to get the muscle fibers of the rear delt fired up. So we've got abduction, horizontal abduction, so we've got this movement here. So the fibers of the rear delts are coming in this direction here. The main thing I want you to get out of this is these muscles either side of the spine, the lower trap fibers, and then you've got the a lot of the retractor muscles. So you've got like the rhomboids, you've got the all the posterior muscles in here, and majorly I'd say you're going to look at the rhomboids and even some of the deep stabilizing muscles of the shoulder. Now these are retractors. These are going to bring the shoulder blades together. And what a lot of people make the mistake of is bringing the shoulder blades together when they train the rear delts. And I'm going to take you out for a second to the rear delt machine and just show you exactly what you should be doing, because a lot of people on the rear delt machine just throw the weight around, okay? Again, just like I was talking about in the trap video, the more you throw things around, the less you're in control, the less you're going to train the muscle through the full range of movement. When you don't train the muscle through the full range of movement, you minimize your opportunity to develop and you maximize your opportunity to get yourself injured. So the rear deltoids are not a big muscle group. From here across to here. So again, abduction horizontally, okay, is the movement that we're going to train. So now you've seen it on the chart, let's go into the gym. Just want to remind you that retracting in this exercise is pointless when you're trying to isolate the rear delts. So guys, most of you, and there's very few gyms that don't have the rear delt machine, will find yourself using this week in, week out to try and develop your rear delts. Now, some people message me and they'll say, but my shoulders don't grow. And I'm like, okay, well, if you look over all of the kind of execution tips that I give you, I'm going to keep saying it till I'm blue in the face, extremity execution. The first thing you need to learn is how to initiate with the working muscle from the length and range and be able to take it through the full range to a fully shortened position. So as I said to you, the rear delt here in this slightly protracted position is under full load. And then when we get out to here, that is going to be a fully shortened rear delt. Now the minute that you get to here, I'm either going to get internal rotation of the capsule or the humerus, or I'm going to actually squeeze the shoulder blades together. That's actually not getting the rear delt shorter at all. So if I'm here, and I see this with people, okay, you should have picked that up pretty well, the fact that I rotated my shoulders big time. And when people secondly get to here and they squeeze the shoulder blades back, you're not training the rear delts. In fact, you actually then, the rear delts come off and you end up pulling back through your shoulder blades. If also you start very elevated, that elevation is going to bring that internal rotation because the traps are going to try and do a lot of the work. So you say to me, well, I do all this exercise and I don't hit my rear delts. Well, one, a lot of people are throwing it around so they're not under control. And I'll keep reiterating this point as well. It is also about getting strong, but get strong when you're under control. So let me show you what I'm looking for. With the exercise, you first and foremost want your shoulder joint and your wrist to be level. What you don't want is this, okay? So if the seat's very low and you're here, the first thing you'll do is use your upper traps. So you want to be depressed with the shoulders, so you've got no elevation. The second thing you want to do is just slightly protract, okay? So we're going to slightly protract forward. So protraction is forward. Not to the point where you're here, just slight protraction. The next thing you'll do is you're going to apply, not going to move these more than an inch, but you're going to apply a bit of tension. By applying tension, you will feel the rear delt muscle turn on. Now, just for a few reps, just learn what it feels like to initiate, to actually start the exercise with the right muscle. Okay, that's the next step. So you learn what it feels like to be in control of the muscle here. Then you're going to drive away. Now, a lot of people's first intention is to drive back to here. What I want you to do is to drive as far wide as you possibly can, because the cam will naturally take you back anyway. So we're going to go from here, and we're going to try and reach as wide as possible. Wide, 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 wide. That is your fully shortened position. Keep the control. Don't let go. And squeeze, 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 squeeze to fully shorten. Now, granted, this is going to burn. I mean, Christ. 48 kilos on there. I get most people with maybe 2 or 3 plates in the early days, and they're burning like mad. If you're burning, you're shaking, and you're finding it hard, especially in that shortened position, you're weak. That's the weight you need to use. Now, the minute that you start giving it, okay, you're using too many other muscle groups. The delts aren't very big, the rear delts. Therefore, they don't need you throwing the weight all over the place. So with this exercise, it's fantastic. Now, this position here, you can start by training the position where you're most weak, okay? So by using not much weight. Now, the problem for a lot of people is if I now put the weight up relative to what I can do here, I'm not going to be able to get it here. So a little nice training technique is first 3 sets, train all the way back here. Hold for 2 seconds in that contracted position. And you are going to be stronger here. So that's when you could potentially take the weight up a little bit and train in this more lengthened position. Because I've got constant tension, I'm still squeezing. The rear delts are going to respond to a lot of more high repetitions, so 15, 20 reps. I also put a lot of drop sets in these, especially coming close to kind of competition. They really, really respond to a lot of lactic acid. But even in the off season, when I train delts in general, they respond to pretty low rest time, training them quite frequently, but getting a lot of lactic acid and a lot of reps into them. So this is the rear delt machine. And I'm also going to move over to the dumbbells and just show you how they kind of vary a little bit. But the good thing about this machine, technically, is from a biomechanics perspective, the more you can lock into any machine and learn the optimal technique, which is why it's great to be able to push in and isolate the muscle in a locked in position, because most people are very unstable in the shoulders, and when they come and do rear delts with dumbbells, they fall short because they just think that it's all about swinging it and they're not under control of the muscle. So we'll move over to the dumbbells and just show you exactly what you need to be doing there as well. So guys, I've moved away from the rear delt machine and we're just going to look at using the dumbbells. Now, in the early days for most people, and even when you're slightly more advanced, trying to hit higher repetitions, bending over with dumbbells, so in this position here, tends to mean that at the point where it gets very, very difficult, people end up bouncing, swinging, squeezing the shoulder blades together. Because technically you're asking yourself to stabilize through your glutes, stabilize through your lower back, keep your abs tight, and then hit the rear delts in this position here. I'd still say that's pretty advanced for a lot of people because, you know, a lot of people aren't strong in the lower body to be able to hold themselves in the position, especially when the lactic acid starts to build up. That's when everything starts to become a bit cheaty. So what I tend to do, if you've only got dumbbells and maybe not the rear delt machine, is to use still a chest support and do your rear delts on the bench. It's going to follow a very, very similar thought process. However, with the dumbbells, the further you get away from the body, the load is actually going to become very, very heavy. So we've got 1 or 2 things that we can do. One, we can use a lighter set of dumbbells and train into this shortened range. Personally, I like to be into the machine, locked in, and training that shortened range there. 2, we can increase the weight, and then we can train in this lengthened position here. Because remember, a muscle in its shortened range is always going to be weaker. A muscle in its lengthened range is actually going to be a lot stronger in most cases. So for this exercise, what I want to look at is how you can create a little bit of a extension to the set. So we're going to train up in the shortened range, and then I'm just going to use 1 set of dumbbells, but the idea would be to increase the load and then still work in that kind of lengthened range. So I'll show you what I mean. So I've got chest supported, which means I can drive down into the pad. I've got the dumbbells here. Now the good thing about this is that I'm still 2 inches off the floor, so I can still protract slightly and they're just going to touch the floor. Now from this position here, I'm going to think about reaching away to Gus. So I'm going to reach away, I'm going to hold the dumbbells in that contracted position, reaching down into that shortened position. And I'll do that for 10 or 15 repetitions. Now, this is where I'm going to be stronger. So if I then left the lighter set of dumbbells and went for a heavier set, even though these are the same, what I could do is then work here, here, here. Note how I'm driving out here. So I'm not trying to get up into that fully shortened range. I'm just working in this lengthened range, which would require probably another 40%, 30-40% more load, and then I can keep that there, keep driving into the pad and keep the tension on. About 1 second up, 1 second down, and we're going to get a maximum amount of lactic acid. So we've got starting to train in the shortened range and then hitting the lengthened range, and you can do that as a really nice kind of extended to the set. Or you could do it as a 3 sets for the shortened range, 3 sets for the lengthened range. Works very well. You could also do like drop sets where you start in the shortened range, work as hard as you can, drop the weight a little bit, still go for the shortened range, and then increase the weight a little bit mid-range, increase the weight a little bit right at the bottom range, and then fatigue the whole spectrum of the muscle fibers. So you've really got the seated machine, you've got the bench. And what I'm going to just show you now, if we just move the bench, is what I was talking about when it comes to bending over. Now I've got pretty strong glutes, strong hamstrings, and for me, I can actually hold this position here, okay? Now sometimes, when it starts to get too heavy, you just see this, okay? Which again is squeezing the shoulder blades together and taking the load off the rear delts. I use them because I can hold that position and I know how to execute the exercise perfectly. So remember, slightly protracted, fully shortened, initiate out of that lengthened range, keep the tension, then increase the load. Don't try and go for the load game all the time with rear delts, because you'll end up not doing very many reps. Hit high lactic acid, get to a load that's really challenging for you technically, and then really try and find as many different variables and ways with some of the tips I've just given you to put a lot of work through them. And I promise you, your rear delts will pop.